Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the second panel discussion of the symposium. This panel discussion is titled The Future of Residential Education. Professor Victor Zhu, Shu Wei-Du of MIT CSAIL will chair this panel. Let's welcome Mr. Zhu.
Well, so we've been sitting here all day listening to a number of talks, and this is the last panel. And I expect fireworks to start right about now, okay? So we are going to have 4 panelists, and I am going to give them an opportunity to make some opening remarks. I am going to legislate a new rule, that is, everybody gets 5 minutes, because we don't have enough time for people to ask questions. I think we're going to do it this way, and the first person, well, if you can't do it in 5... you just have to talk fast, okay? So anyway, the first one is Professor John Gutek.
Okay, I'm going to talk very fast. I hope everyone can follow this as I go. Yes. All right, so let's talk about residential versus online university education. So we can look at the advantages and disadvantages. At MIT, for example, it costs about $58,000 a year. You can get an online degree at Georgia Tech for about $5,000 for 2 years. While you're at MIT, you don't get to work, so you lose some income. You have to travel to lovely Cambridge, Massachusetts, where the weather is miserable. You have about 1,000 courses to choose from versus maybe 100,000 online courses. We teach only in English, about 1,200 students a year. So which of these is better? Which is more attractive? Another way to look at it is, given these facts, can residential education even survive? Well, I should point out this is not the first technological revolution in education. Around 1040 AD, Bishang invented movable type. Not many years later, an ancestor of Victor Zhu said this. And maybe for the non-Mandarin speakers in the audience, Victor could translate this. Yes, this technology is going to end schools. Well, Victor has always emphasized to me, and maybe it's the Chinese outlook on life, taking a long view of things, but still, this is a pretty long view. Maybe he was right, but schools are still there. Well, I think what's going on here is there are fundamentally different experiences. So I have offered, as Anat said, an online course, and this is my view of the online experience. This is a typical student taking my course, Learning Serenity. This is a typical classroom as Steve Ward is lecturing in his class. You can't see Steve, but he's way down there at the bottom. He comes with bodyguards and everything, and he teaches. They're fundamentally different experiences. They're incomparable. What's going on? Well, one question to ask is, are online courses not good? Is that a problem? This was a survey, and as you can see, the view is inferior quality now, but boy, if we wait 3 years, 10 years, it's going to be really better than the live experience. What you can't see from this survey is that it was taken in 2003. So by now, they should be superior. To my mind, they're not. On the other hand, I think this is largely beside the point, that it doesn't really matter. Because education is not about information transfer. We often forget this, and we talk about all the great ways we can transfer information using online courses. But to my mind, that's not what a higher education is about, not what a university education is about. The purpose of education is simply to change people. If somebody doesn't change, then they have not gotten anything out of their education. Part of it is by changing knowledge, but also there's a change in skills, a change in attitudes, and a change in the community with whom you associate. Of these, only one, knowledge, is easy to convey in books and easy to convey in online courses. One out of the four things that matter. From this, I conclude that as we think about the future of residential education, what we need to think about is conveying information, conveying knowledge is going to be of decreasing importance in our job. And we need to redefine what we think we're doing. So I'm not going to speak for all of online or all of residential education, but I've been at MIT a long time, so I'm going to, for the moment, think about what is it that makes an MIT education special. Is it the physical facilities, this beautiful building we live in? Is it the curriculum, this not very beautiful curriculum we have? Is it the faculty, this very beautiful faculty member we have? As you can see, as the type size increases, it's my view of the importance. Is it the educational and cultural philosophy of work hard and take risks? I think what really matters is the students. And that's where residential education will always really win. It's getting a community of young people together who will grow together and learn together. That said, I'm now going to do the thing we should never do, generalize from one example, and from what I think is important at MIT, say what I think is important about residential education in general. It's finding a way to inspire students to want to learn. It's helping students discover what it is they want to learn. And that's not easy. It's helping students develop cultural attitudes. We heard that in the last panel session, where there was an impassioned plea for ethics and other kinds of things. That's very important. It's helping students build relationships that will help them develop socially and intellectually. And what we always have to remember is that most of this happens outside the classroom. And what the MOOCs are doing is they may replace a lot of the classroom experience, but that's not the same as replacing a university education. And with that, I'll stop. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I don't mean to cut you short. It was a joke. So the next opening remark will be made by Professor Stephen Yang, Yang Zhenhua 教授. And Yang 教授 is Director of Information and Technology Department at Ministry of Education.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Stephen Yang from with the Ministry of Education. No matter it's a residential or it's a MOOC, I think the change of role is gonna be happen. The role of learners, teachers, and schools. For the learners, nowadays learners can learn everything from everywhere on the internet. So I believe MOOC is just one of the many choices students can choose. And no matter students is on campus or off campus, and disregard their age and degrees, learners it's not just a students. And for the learners, the way of learning also been changed. A couple of the pedagogical theories have been proposed decades ago, and nowadays they can be realized thanks to the modern technology, especially the MOOCs. Students should learn to self-regulate it. I believe John just mentioned students, they need to improve their attitude and the way of thinking. And with limited schedules like MOOCs courses, students need to can follow their own pace when they are learning. And learning is not alone. especially on the internet. So the students should collaborate and work together. That's for the collaborative learning. And for MOOCs, students should learn again and again if they are not familiar with the content materials. So that's for the mastery learning. And the second, for the teachers, we used to be the course providers in the lectures. So many teachers say, I'm so busy because I'm busy with the lecture. But for the MOOCs, teachers' role been changed. A teacher can be a coach, guiding students. Teachers can be a moderator, and teachers can also simply just be an assistant, not a TA, or is assistant. And we always encourage the teachers teach less and encourage students learn more. And for the interaction, the way of interaction, I believe, is also changed due to the massive and online and open, due to the big number of students and a huge a number, over 10,000 students. It's hard to imagine to communicate and collaborate with the students. And also students can come from on campus and off campus. Not to mention it's probably international. So the language could be the barrier. That's the change of interaction. And also, I think teachers, like I am, we used to use chalkboard and board, and now it's social media. So everyone needs to learn on the Twitter, on the Facebook, and things like that. And also for the online assessment, it's different, totally different from the old days. It's not paper and pencils. Now it's auto grading, peer review, peer grading, things like that. It's more technology oriented. And of course, I remember Annan said big data. Okay, so you have a huge bunch of students learning on the internet. We can collect so many data and do the big data and data analytics to analyze students' behaviors and do some analytics and help students and provide them the necessary feedback. For the schools also changed. School and all classrooms becomes a metaphor. Probably it's still physical, but many of them could become virtual, okay? Especially for the MOOCs. Many universities, they can have a counterpart of university. One is the real one, and the other one is the virtual one. And for the schools, they have to rethink their value when they invest the MOOCs. We would like to encourage the university to maximize the value and minimize the cost and the risk. I believe not everything is good. There must be some counterpart in terms of the MOOCs. Also, the change of value, I would like to say from the administration, name brand, and campus. For the administration, schools how to maintain its institution integrity and raise and improve students' learning outcomes through the MOOCs and also improve schools' academic quality. Also the name brand. In MOOCs age, school probably the name could be changed due to you have some famous or popular courses on the internet, or you have a fabulous and superstar teachers. So the course and teachers could change the name of the schools and benefit the schools. And for the campus, John just said the campus, I still believe a campus will exist. Life is more than digital. Even I'm a computer scientist, I still believe digital learning or digital age is not to replace our real life. Life is more than digital. Life is more about caring and our social and our interaction and the human touch. So that's the life about and the campus life about. And finally, I would like to proudly announce we just kicked off our Taiwan's MOOCs initiative yesterday. And just a coincidence, and I'm very happy. So it's a national movement toward the MOOCs. It's funded by government, by MOE. And from the government side and from the Taiwan's university side, I think we are ready. The system is ready, and the software and the services are ready. And we wish with the MOOC initiative, the movement, we could enable, enhance, and empower Taiwan's educational reform. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Yang. And the next person to make opening remark is Professor T.C. Peng Dingquan 教授, Senior Advisor to the Provost from the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, HKUST, 香港科大. Please.
Thank you, Victor. This is an aerial view of the beautiful campus of HKUST. So I believe many of you would agree that this campus itself speaks for one attractive aspect of residential education. I want to give you an overview on Hong Kong's higher education landscape. There are 8 publicly funded institutions in Hong Kong. HKUST is one of them. And while the tuition fee in the US has increased significantly in the past 10 years, I feel the pain myself because both of my kids graduated from US universities in the past few years. But the tuition in Hong Kong has remained the same for the past 10 years. Higher education in Hong Kong is heavily subsidized by the government. Government funding covers roughly 80% of the cost. Undergraduate program in Hong Kong used to follow the UK system, which offer 3-year programs rather than the 4-year program as you will find in the US. But 2 years ago, the entire system has switched to 4-year. One of the reasons for the change is the belief that one additional year of residential education could provide better training for higher level skills, such as critical thinking, teamwork, and leadership skills. So instead of adding more academic contents, a lot of emphasis has been put on co-curriculum activities, that's out of classroom activities, including international exchange, undergraduate research opportunity, internship, service learning, and residential life. But then only around 18% of the high school graduates could enter these 8 universities. For the remaining 50% of them attend other post-secondary institutions, which are considered to be of much lower quality. So you can see that in Hong Kong, high-quality residential education is provided in a way mostly to the academic elites. Another development is that the sector has been pushing for internationalization. The percentage of non-local students has increased from 2% to now close to 20% in the past 10 years. So you can see that diversity of student population is also an important component in residential education. I'll give you a very brief overview on what we think about the trends and development in teaching and learning. In this graph, the horizontal axis, as you can see, gives the different modes of delivery from the traditional face-to-face to purely online with blended learning, which combined face-to-face and online in the middle. The vertical axis gives the different levels of interaction ranging from no interaction to high interaction and collaboration. The highlighted region here gives the typical lecture style teaching in most of the brick and mortar institutions. Lecture style teaching has been around for decades, and it has often been criticized as not very effective. So how can we make teaching more effective? One can go back to over 2,000 years ago. You can find in the writing of Shunji, who is a very famous philosopher and educator. He says, 文机不如见机，见机不如知机，知机不如神机. Its meaning can be interpreted by a similar quote attributed to Benjamin Franklin over 200 years ago. Tell me and I forget, teach me I may remember. Most importantly, involving the learner actively in the learning process is what makes them truly learn something. Well, HKUST has been involved in the online education during the past 15 years, and we are also one of the early participants in MOOC. We joined Coursera in 2012 and edX in 2013. So far, we have offered 3 courses and attracted over a total of 130,000 students. So with the passing rate of roughly 10% on the average. But so how, if you go back to look at how we can make learning more effective as promoted by Shunji and Benjamin Franklin, you can see that instructors can pay more attention to the students as well as introduce more interaction when you have a small class setting. But this is not always possible. So HKUST pioneered the use of personal response system, or PRS, is also called Clicker, to introduce real-time interaction with students, even in large classrooms. And active learning is a learner-centric pedagogy, and many studies have shown that it could enhance performance matrices, in particular learning outcome. One very successful example is MIT's CSAIL project, and many universities now in the US has implemented some kind of active classroom model after MIT. At HKUST, we have also converted a number of traditional classrooms into active classrooms for the instructors to try out some of the new pedagogical approaches, including collaborative learning, peer instruction, as well as a flipped classroom. And we are also developing some online courses with real life interaction between instructor and student for our remote campuses in mainland China. In summary, the trend of teaching and learning has been moved away from teacher-centric to learner-centric pedagogy using active and collaborative learning. And the desirable model for teaching and learning can be achieved through face-to-face, blended learning, as well as online, as well as we focus the responsibility of learning on the learner and involve them actively in the learning process. So, well, I could skip this. Well, so why are we joining MOOC? We look at MOOC as a catalyst in our quest for ways to enhance residential education. We will be using MOOCs as basis for blended learning. In fact, all the MOOCs that we have offered would be blended with in-class teaching, and we will be using blended learning for at least one course in every department within the university. And the more successful one will be developed as MOOC. Another very interesting development would be to use MOOC as a means to expand our internationalization. Okay, we can allow students to take MOOCs during the regular semester and then attend the credit-bearing face-to-face intensive program during the summer to earn credit at partner institutions, thus expanding our student exchange program. And then we could also, rather than offering MOOC as an individual course, we can offer them as massive open online programs. ethics is already doing that for the X series, or MOOD, massive open online degrees, like what Georgia Tech is doing. Last but not least, we plan to use the data collected to perform learning analytics for improving the learning experience of students on campus. So this is another view of HKUST. And you can see that we are actually still building. Okay? The location at the far end there is actually would be we are building some accommodation facility for our executive MBA program, which has been ranked #1 for the past 5 years by Financial Times. So we are betting on the future of residential education to stay in the long haul. Thank you.
Okay, now I invite Professor Anna Agarwal to make a few remarks.
So a panel is absolutely no fun unless you can make digs at your co-panelists. So I'll make some digs on from my illustrious colleague, Professor John Guttag. So the danger with challenging a computer scientist or danger with challenging an engineer is that all problems are solvable. You can always write a program for most things. So John talked about CASK, C-A-S-K, that the campus is about community, attitude, skills, and knowledge, C-A-S-K. So it actually turns out that John argued that knowledge is something we could transfer through MOOCs and online technology. He's right. Turns out for the millennial generation, you can do all four. So take community. Just go ask your children, where do they spend most of the time in community? It's on Facebook, it's on Vine, it's on WeChat, Snapchat, Twitter, WhatsApp, the list goes on and on. That's the millennial generation, it's all online. Communities are online, that's the future. Collaboration, the world is going to a place where collaboration, production, development is all going to be virtual and distributed, and so we better learn that. The second is skills. A large amounts of manufacturing in a number of areas is all virtual. It's all virtual technology based, all online, all computerized. Circuit design. When I was in college, we actually soldered components together. People don't do that anymore. Most of design and development is completely simulation based. Heck, pilots learn to fly through flight simulators and spend 5% of the time flying a real plane. So most skills can also be learned online. So what does it leave? Attitudes. Even attitudes, if you talk to my kids, it's very clear that most of the attitudes are also learned online. So I think, what have we left? So all of this stuff can be done online, and a millennial generation does it online. But I don't want to throw campuses under a bus. I believe in campuses, although I can't put my finger on it. My colleague Sanjay Sarma at MIT has put it best. He says, there's a magic on campus. There's something about campus, it's a magic. We don't understand it. And I agree, because as Steve Ward said, once you understand it, you can write a program to do it. So therefore, I'll hide behind the fact that there's this magic we don't quite understand. And as long as I can hide behind this magic that I don't understand, we can't write a program to simulate it. So then finally, let me talk a little bit about what do I think campuses will look like in the future, and in a couple of minutes. So if you look at campuses today, all over the world, they're like what the US conglomerate AT&T used to be in the late 70s. In the phone system, AT&T did everything. They built this horrible-looking pink-colored phone. They had the networks, they had the content, they did the ads, they did the billing, they did everything. The whole thing was stovepiped. That's what universities look like today. They do admissions, healthcare, student placement, teaching, research, campus renewal, building. They have a department for everything. So universities today look like AT&T used to look like 40 years ago. Where do I see universities going? I have one word for it, unbundled. So I wrote a blog on this in the Huffington Post 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I got hammered by a lot of my colleagues, but I really believe in it. That universities will need to unbundle themselves in the future, much like AT&T unbundled itself. Universities will need to think about what is our core value add? What are the key components that we are really, really good at? Let's focus on those. Why are we doing healthcare? Why are we doing student placement? Why are we doing things like mental counseling? Some of these things may be important. Why are we doing research? There are many, many universities in the world that have no business doing research. They should focus on teaching. In many cases, people should focus on research and maybe not teaching. Well, maybe figure out what the core competence is and focus on that. And so one can imagine unbundling by content, by time, and function. So today, if I'm a professor, I write the textbook, I teach my class, I do everything. Why not unbundle content, for example? I'm used to using a textbook written by a colleague. Why not use videos and exercises created by some other colleague? And I can spend my time with my students teaching them higher order skills, how to collaborate, how to work together, how to communicate, how to learn about, how to learn as opposed to getting content. So we can begin thinking about unbundling either function or content or time, and then just pick those aspects that universities can do well and focus on those and let others do the rest. Thank you.
Now I invite my panelists to come up and join me. Okay, instead of sitting down, I think I'm going to stand here so I can see what's happening. So I don't want to impose too much structure on the remaining time we have, but I want to talk about 3 different threads. The first thread has to do with how would MOOC evolve? If we were looking at MOOC today versus when we would look at MOOC 5, 10 years from now, what are some of the changes? So the other one is, how would residential education change over the period? And the third topic has to do with, will MOOC augment or replace residential learning? Okay? Now, the way I like to do it is to pose the question and ask the panelists to answer those questions. You don't have to answer them. And I certainly would like to involve the audience, and then we switch over to a different topic when we reach the 1/E point, okay? So first, how would MOOC evolve? Last March at MIT, there was a symposium on the future of residential university. And during that meeting, the Harvard professor, Professor Eric Mazur, said the following. He said, we need to make sure that we don't simply use online education as a new avenue for doing things the old way, putting old wine into new bottles. So I think there are things that are going to change, because at the moment what we're doing is to take courses that we're teaching on campus and put it online. But I think the minute you transcend time and space, there are many things you can change. If you look at, for example, Rob Miller's talk this morning, you see that people's attention span is about 10 minutes. So why are we organizing the lectures in terms of 1 hour? Because we need to synchronize. Everybody's together in the same place, right? This is just one example of the kind of things that is going to change with MOOC. And I wonder if any of the panelists would like to respond. Professor Poon?
Is it on now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, definitely, I think MOOC is a very exciting development, and I'm pretty sure that it's going to stay. But if you look at the current development of MOOC, you have the individual instructors and the institution developing a particular MOOC. I see that in the future, there could be more collaborations. Yeah, there could be multiple instructors, even from different institutions. They could co-develop a MOOC to make the content even of higher quality. Because currently, for a student to find the right MOOC to take, it's not an easy task. But if we have the collaboration, I think it will definitely improve the quality and then make it more attractive.
If anybody in the audience would like to comment or would like to ask a question, all you have to do is raise your hand. A microphone would appear. Okay? Yeah.
Maybe I should first comment on your placing a knot and I this far apart. But I think those are great questions. And I think you're quite right that we really do need to rethink the way we teach and what we do. I know the fact that I've offered a MOOC now 3 times has definitely changed the way I'm teaching my on-campus course. Most noticeably, I decided that it shouldn't be one course at all. But just as the MOOC worked better in smaller chunks, I'm asking MIT permission to break my course up into smaller chunks on campus. So I do think there is a positive feedback there where one helps improve the other. I think the big Fredo Duran made a very good point that one of the problems we have today with MOOCs is they're too static. There's so much work to build them that they don't change. Whereas every time I teach a course online, it's different from the previous time I taught it. And I think we really need to inject that kind of spontaneity into MOOCs in some way, and I think that will be very difficult. I can't resist saying that I do not at all buy Anat's view that, about online communities. I hope all of you realize that he was implying that the only reason you took the trouble to physically attend today's session is that you're too old to do it in the modern way.
Please. Professor Young? Oh. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. While MOOCs evolved, I believe the other ways of learning also evolved. Just like I say, MOOCs is one of the choice students can have. So the face-to-face and other online learnings will evolve along with the MOOCs. And for the residential education will be changed. I think that certainly will be changed because of MOOCs. And we expect to see more and more the blended learning will occur in especially on campus courses, and more the collaborative learning and flipped classrooms. In fact, this pedagogical theories have been practiced in Taiwan from K-12 to higher education, and we see more and more progress, and we look forward to the improvement in Taiwan's education. MOOCs will replace anything? I don't think so. I don't believe anything can replace anything. Okay, I think one thing is complement with the others, or one thing is helping others make them better and better. So everything could become better just because of the MOOCs. I put the MOOCs as an impulse, and things like that, and will make our education system even better.
Anand?
So in terms of MOOC's evolution, we can think about evolution both in terms of content and in terms of how we organize and structure and credential MOOCs. In terms of content itself, I think a large part of it is training us professors. So we are a different generation. I mean, we move slowly. And so I'm 54 years old, and I move much slower than my 18-year-old. So if you look at a lot of the courses right now, as professors, the courses are a virtual replica of what we do in the classroom. So someone sticks a video recorder in front, a professor teaches on the blackboard, and records the whole lecture or breaks it up. But fundamentally, the professor recording. As we move ahead, more and more professors are trying newer things. So for example, some of them are trying writing on a tablet, Khan-style tablet capture. Others are writing on a piece of paper with an overhead camera. It's a different kind of style of teaching. And then some of the most popular ones we're seeing, where I think MOOCs will head in terms of content, is more dramatization, where teaching will look much more like theater. And one of the most successful ones was one where two of my colleagues, where there were two professors, and they were arguing with each other about a problem as to how to solve the problem. And they would fight each other, and all you could see was the hands. And they were writing on a piece of paper. You would push the hands aside and say, no, this is how you do it, this is how you do it. And students absolutely loved it. They were looking at two approaches to solving a problem. And so I think dramatized approaches to teaching like that, I think will be something we will evolve to in a lot of the classes. So that's the content. On the policy side, we're looking at newer and newer things. MOOC started off at teaching single courses and single course certificates. And then, working with MIT, a key innovation in terms of creating programs, and Professor T.C. Pong also talked about it, to create programs or sequences of courses. So MIT has launched sequence of courses in entrepreneurship, logistics, aeronautics, and computer science, where students can take a sequence of courses. And as T.C. pointed out, a lot of discussion amongst universities on edX that are looking to offer the sequence of courses across multiple universities. And so students can then get complete sequences in different disciplines. So I think this is just year 2. So I'm just salivating to see how things will look another 10 years from now.
So let me ask a follow-on question. So if we are really going to be creating these 8-10-minute vignettes of courses, can you see a time where, in fact, a MOOC course will consist of a collection of pieces from different universities? This has to do with the issue of branding, right? Maybe this part of the course ought to be from MIT and the other part should be from Berkeley or Stanford or other places. Does anybody have an opinion about this branding issue?
I think I want to approach it as a branding issue, but I'm not. I think one of the things that makes a course good is the same thing that makes a piece of theater good or a movie good, is it tells a story. There's a cohesion, it's planned, it's not a bunch of randomly good ideas stuck together. And I think it's not that easy to pull pieces from multiple places and weave it into a coherent whole. For some things it's fine, where maybe there's small things. Other things, I think there's no substitute for planning and really thinking it through and getting things in the right order and remembering what was said the last time and being able to refer back to what was said a week ago or 8 minutes ago. So I'm a little bit dubious about this notion of pulling it together from a lot of different sources.
Well, I want to use the analogy even in the traditional teaching. For certain courses, you may assign the students only one textbook, if that's a good one. But very often, you may need multiple textbooks. For even newly developed area, you may not even have a textbook. Okay, so I think MOOC, in a way, could be developed in a similar way. So you look at the MOOC resource pool, and then you try to pull the material that's appropriate for the particular course. And then you may even ask your colleagues, or when I am offering a particular course about doing business in China, I may want to use a Harvard course and then include some local context to make the course more interesting. So I see that you would see more and more of this kind of packaging happening in MOOC.
Okay, thank you. I want to give the audience a chance to add comments or ask questions before we move on. Anybody has anything to say about this issue? How MOOC is going to evolve? No? Yes.
I come from Asia University in mid-Taiwan. Just some reflection or feedback about what you have just discussed so far. I think the future of MOOCs or the future of residential education all depend on, how we define or conceptualize education, which from its Latin origin means to draw out the potential of the learner. And the best way to draw the potential of the learner is to engage the learner. And from my humanity perspective, is to activate the learner's imagination. So long as the learner's imagination is, provoked or stimulate it. I do believe whether it's MOOCs or the residential education will play its proper role. Thank you.
Okay. Well, let's switch topic a bit and talk about the evolution of residential education and classrooms. How would that change as a consequence of the appearance of MOOC? People talk a lot about flipped classroom, for example, in which students are going to be able to listen to the lectures by themselves at home or at their leisure, and they will come to the classrooms only to have discussions and tutorials, asking questions and things like that. That's just one example of possible change. I wonder if the panelists would like to comment on that. Please, Yang Jiao.
Not every school or every teacher could be the MOOCs providers, but every school and every teacher can be the MOOCs consumers. So I encourage the faculties in Taiwan treat MOOCs as a voice textbook or is a multimedia textbook. So they can, make like a composition. To compose a course can be 5 or 10 minutes. And Victor said if students took the lectures before they come to class, then what they're doing in the class, the flipped classroom. So we can exercise many pedagogical theories during the class because students, when they come to class, they already prepared the necessary knowledge and skills. The things they need to practice in classroom is like a communication, collaboration, critical thinking, problem solving, things like that. So teacher and the students and the peer students, they can do more things than they imagine rather than simply lecturing. We encourage the classroom, and as I say, classroom could be the metaverse. It's not real. It could be virtual. Even in virtual, you can do the things like this.
So I think the key to how things will evolve on the campus is this concept of unbundling that I talked about. And one can think of unbundling of content. Rather than I, as a professor, having to create the laboratories, the simulations, the videos, the online exercises, what we can do is we can draw upon content. And to Gutak's point, at the risk of agreeing with John, I really do believe that there needs to be a coherent spine through the whole. There needs to be a story. There needs to be a story arc through the course. And the instructor can put that together, but in putting that together can draw upon content from multiple sources. As instructors, we are already completely comfortable drawing upon textbooks from other sources, drawing on papers and so on. Heck, as you pointed out, we can draw upon videos and interactive exercises from other people as well, and we can create that coherent arc, so to speak, but draw from content and really unbundle content. I'll give you some examples. Professor Armando Fox at Berkeley created a course in software as a service. This is Ruby on Rails. And his course is now being offered in a blended model in 40 locations around the world. And in each location, the faculty are blending it in different ways along the lines of what Professor Yang talked about. In one example, the professor still gives the lecture, but they use Armando Fox's online assessments for the students. In another university, they use Professor Fox's videos, but they give their own homeworks. So there's rich content that can be drawn upon to make your own local course better. And I think we will see a lot of that aggregation of content, unbundling of content happening going ahead.
I would see that the combination of the branding of and residential education has the advantage that it would provide more personalized education in the future. Because different students have different ability. So you could allow students to take a MOOC and then earn the credit for it. Then they may be able to finish the program in 2 years or even 1 year if they are really that capable. So if you go back again to the great educator in China, Hongji, he talked about personalized education, right? So I think MOOC, in a way, would provide education for all. Okay, that's also promoted by Hongji. By using branding of the MOOC and residential education, you'll be able to personalize education.
John?
We've been throwing around the term MOOC a lot, and we'll remember that the M in MOOC stands for massive. But I think there's another important role for education, online education, which is not the massive education. It's targeted. Students are different. Different populations are different. And I think over time, the way it will evolve is not that we think the right thing is to produce a course for 1 million people to take it, but to use this material to deliver appropriate courses for targeted populations. And I think a large role of the university professor and the universities will be to take this vast sea of online material and shape it so that it fits their students. And I think that will be a big change going forward.
Mm-hmm. So I can't help but want to make the following remark. If in fact in the future in residential education, most of the work is going to be done in smaller group of people, you want to promote discussion, tutorials, and things like that, rather than lectures, then the construction plan for HKUST, maybe you should encourage your donors not to build big lecture halls, but many, many smaller classrooms in which you can change the way you interact.
Yeah. In fact, that's what we are doing.
Oh, that's
the
wonderful.
New business building especially, they have all these small discussion facilities.
Hmm. While I wait for someone to raise their hands, let me ask John and Anand a question. Both of you have offered your course, 600 in your case, 6002 in your case, on campus and then online. And can you think of some concrete examples in which the online version actually influenced your on-campus version of the course?
Yes, and I should probably mention that I've offered it online in 2 different ways, through what I'll call the edX model of synchronous online education, but also the MIT OpenCourseWare version of asynchronous education, where the students go at their own speed. One of the interesting things I've found, and I've gotten a lot of feedback from students, is again, it's not one size fits all. Some students much prefer the edX style. Some students prefer the OpenCourseWare style. Some people like the short 10-minute or 6-minute segments. Some people like the longer 50-minute segments. And as I think about that on campus, I think that must surely be true of our on-campus students as well. And so one of the things I've taken away from the experience of offering it online is that we need to think about ways to offer more varied experiences to our on-campus students so that they can take it in ways that better fit their style of learning, because different people have different styles. And so I think that, I don't know how to do that, but I think we should certainly do that. The other thing I've taken away is with the edX version, we went to a lot of trouble to put in what we call finger exercises, where every 10 minutes or so we ask a small problem that the students can check. And they got great reviews, in particular, the instant feedback, as opposed to hand in a problem set and get it back a week later. They loved the idea that they would solve a problem and get responses seconds later. And so one of the things we're now working on in the on-campus versions is trying to find ways to provide much faster feedback to the students so that they can help assess their learning. So I think it is a very productive kind of thing.
So with the 6002X, or Circuits and Electronics, that has been offered now as a MOOC 4 times. And unfortunately, it was offered on campus as a blended class only once. This was when we first offered it in the spring of 2012. We had a volunteer group of about 20 students who took a blended class on campus. And there, what we tried to do there was use exactly the same content in the MOOC and offer that to the classroom students. And we also had, in addition to all the MOOC content, the online content, we also encouraged students to come to class. And there we interacted with the students, and they interacted with each other as well. And one of the things we learned from that was that students did not want to come to class. And they said, look, we signed up for the online class because we do not want to come to class. We do not want to come to a rigid time-bound lecture. So you announced an online class, so why are you forcing us to come to class? So we said, okay, it's not required. We got pizza. We said you can come and eat pizza. And still only half the students or a third of the students would show up. People just do not like to be told what to do. They all have their own styles. So one of the key things that we learned was that students just do not like rigid times and sitting down and listening or doing something for a whole hour. And what students told us was the MOOC-style approach of watching videos and doing things at their own pace was very important to them. And what we found was that a large majority of the students watched the videos at 1.5 times the speed. And I talk fast, and they watched it at 1.5 times the speed. But unfortunately for me, they would mute the professor and read the transcript. So we think that we are heroes walking into class and giving this fantastic lecture for an hour. Students will, given their choice, they will mute you and read the transcript and run you at 1.5 times the speed. So what you think you're good at and what you think the students are getting out of it is not what students want to get out of it. And the flexibility is very, very critical for the students.
Just interject a point there that I don't think that's all for the good. One of the things I'm fond of telling my children is a lot of life is about showing up. And I think the notion that a student thinks that, well, I should be able to do everything when I want to do it, that I don't have to show up for class, I don't have to put any discipline, is not necessarily the right lesson to be teaching them. So I worry a little bit about this, thinking that that's a good thing as opposed to a bad thing.
Okay. I'm going to spend the remaining minute to ask the question, the last question, will MOOC augment or replace residential learning? This is something that has been discussed a lot. You can read all kinds of positions that you can see it on the web. But my colleague, Professor Steve Ward, promised to make his opinion known to the rest of us.
Okay, I have to say that I've been listening to our distinguished panelists, and had this fantasy running through my mind. Okay, it's a fantasy about a meeting that might have happened 30,000 years ago, where the last of the remaining Neanderthals were on a panel, sitting on the stage, and agreeing that while these Homo sapiens have some roles, but Neanderthals will always be on top of things. Or, to take a little bit more recent example, one can imagine the last board meeting of the publishers of the Encyclopedia Britannica 25 years ago or something, where they were agreeing, well, the internet is an interesting medium, but, it'll never replace encyclopedias. Yeah? Where are they now? And maybe there are meetings like that going on now at the New York Times about print media, print newspapers, and so on. My serious question for each of you is, do any of you really believe that there will be residential undergraduate education 50 years from now? Okay, it's going to take, obviously there will be 10 years from now and maybe even 15 years from now. It takes a while for this kind of change to happen. But in this day and age, where, as Anant pointed out, social interactions are moving onto the network. We're old, white-haired old codgers. We don't, do the things that our kids do. But it's, there's just more progress along those lines than we can possibly account for. And imagine the scarce resource, the college professor, 50 years from now, or 20 years from now, or even maybe next year, who has to make the decision about whether he's going to spend his time coming up with a course that will be taken by 100 residential students or 100,000 online students. Okay, there's a strong economic incentive. So over a 50-year time scale, do you really think residential education will persist?
Well,
my answer are both sides, answer no, if diploma can be replaced by competency, capability, literacies, then I think the residential education could be end in less than 50 years. On the other hand, especially for in Chinese societies, diploma still is very important. Unless we can change the concept, then my answer is no, if the diploma is still the key issues. I recall one time I discussed this issue with the former president of National Taiwan University, President Lee. He said he's very confident MOOCs cannot replace, no matter how many students took NTU's MOOCs, but no one can get diploma from NTU unless he or she is a registered student. That's why President Lee is so confident that residential education won't be replaced.
Maybe I'll first start by telling you another interesting story along the lines of Steve Ward's story. There's a very famous paper written in about 100 years after the printing press was invented in the mid 1600s, where this paper talked about handwritten books, manuscripts, where the paper lambasted when the printing press came out. It was called the Walmart of books. Before that, monks used to write and translate and transcribe manuscripts all by hand. And so this paper talks about how the printing press will never replace the book, will never replace the handwritten manuscripts, and monks will always have a job. There will always be for high quality learning, which had the imprimatur of the institution or the monastery that created those books. That would never ever be replaced by the textbook. And the textbook would be a cheap, low quality, third-rate thing for the masses of some people. So see where things are today. So that seems to imply that the world may go the way that Steve suggested. I think slightly differently. I think 50 years from now, there will be a residential university, just that what the university does is going to be completely different from what we do today. It could be that there are many ways you can think about it. It won't be what we have today. One fantasy could be that if you're very, very, very rich, then you can afford to pay huge amounts of money and go to this country club for 4 years, where you play sports. It's hard to play football and hurt each other online. So you play sports all day long, and you drink beer and other fluids, and then you go and learn online. So all the learning is done online, but maybe you do other activity on campus. So what happens in a university will change. Maybe you get a diploma locally, but everything is learning is online. So we don't know what the university will look like, and I think that is one way in which things could evolve.
Well,
Professor Poon.
I think, in a way, it could depending on the discipline. I think if the residential education is to be replaced, I think computer science probably would be the first one to go. So we are the endangered species. And for certain areas like humanity or even in business education, I think the face-to-face interaction and networking is very important. In the medicine, in law, right? So I don't think you can replace those disciplines. but for certain discipline, maybe. And also, in any case, it's not for the educators to say, it's the politicians. You may want to the politicians may decide to replace residential education because of cost. They may decided that they want to keep residential education because they want elitist education. Okay, I think, unfortunately, it's not the education who would decide.
Well, I thought I knew what I was going to say until I heard that. Now I'm terrified. but it makes a lot of sense. If the politicians allow it, I believe residential education will still exist 50 years from now. The kind of conversation that the kind of remarks that Steve Ward is making, I'm sure people made when photography was invented. And they said, no one will ever again lay paintbrush to paper. Turns out, there's still a thriving industry in painting. I'm sure that same thing was made when Thomas Edison invented the phonograph. People said, never again will anyone attend a live concert. Guess what? More money is spent on live concerts today than on recordings. When the movies were invented, people said, live theater is gone. No one will ever want to go to a theater. Why would an actor want to waste his or her time performing before a few hundred people when they could make a movie? Things evolve, and I think there will always be a desire among people to be with other people and do things in a community. And I think residential education will play a very important role if the politicians allow it.
Thank you, John, and I'm going to let Paul Hsu make the last word.
Just a while ago, Steve Ward and I were carrying on a conversation about what kind of business model would persist, what kind of business model will vanish in the years to come. We didn't exactly say 50 years, but we did talk about two models would ever exist, will forever exist. One is politician, okay? No matter how technology changes, politician will still play a role. The other thing we talk about, barber shop. Even with the most advanced technology, nobody will invent a machine that you stick your head in and they give you a haircut. And Steve said, somebody tried, okay, but failed. So addressing those questions, I think even diploma is gone. It's replaced by something else, some other kind of sign or some other kind of certificate or whatever. I sort of agree with John Gutek. I said, one thing that will never change, human beings still need to interact with each other. Now, what is called residential education, that can easily be replaced by another name. But as long as the people are gathering, exchanging experience, inevitably there will be a group wants to learn, a group wants to share experiences. So it may not be called residential education, but it's certainly the model will sustain for people to get together to share experience and learning from each other.
Thank you, Paul. And I think we have reached the end of this last panel, and I want to thank the panelists for their participation. And I would declare the panel closed. But before you leave, I'm also supposed to close the session. So we spent a pretty intense day today in this room, trying to look into what we had done in the area of MOOC, what remains to be done, what the impact of MOOC is on our lives and the lives of our children. And I hope you have gained some information about how these people think about this topic. And I want to thank some people at this point. The first and foremost, I want to thank the Epoch Foundation for putting this event together. Paul Hsu, thank you very much. And Josephine Chow, who learned to receive phone calls from me at 12 midnight. And Ashley, who's masterfully organized this event. And please, all the Epoch staff and the Epoch interns, please stand up so we can recognize you. Thank you very much. Until we meet again, 谢谢。